me start by saying how sincerely grateful I am for the amount of long, hard hours that the students here at Penn State have put in producing TEDx. Without their efforts, this would not be possible. In fact, some of these students may have had me in class, and if so, they know that my passion is the study of how the earth rips, tears, splits, and rends asunder rock, a process that I'll describe as natural fracking. Starting in the 1970s, federal grants allowed me to study natural fracking and gas shales. During that period of time, I learned how the fracking process occurred with the help of one of the world's most unsophisticated scientific instruments, a simple piece of chalk. From this chalk, I was able to learn how to read these natural fractures by rubbing their surfaces, much like people rub tombstones to read inscriptions. An international company followed my progress of my research, and during that period of time, that company decided to support a student of mine working on the Antrum, a gas shale in Michigan. This was one of the first gas shale plays in North America. My research continued for 3 decades, after which Jefferies, a Madison Avenue investment bank, called up and asked me to assess the Marcellus for its potential as a gas shale. The conference call was scheduled to last 30 minutes and went on for well over an hour. 100 investment bankers representing billions of dollars of investment capital listened in. During that talk, someone asked how much I expected the Marcellus to yield in terms of natural gas. I didn't know, but I immediately came back to my office and set about doing a back-of-the-envelope calculation. And that back-of-the-envelope calculation showed that there was 25 times as much natural gas as the previously published results. This was staggering. When scientists differ by this much, someone has it wrong. So I immediately called my colleague at SUNY Fredonia, Gary Lash, and asked him to double-check my calculations. When Lash affirmed my calculations, the first salvo of the fracking debate rattled around in my head. What if I were wrong? Billions of investment capital would be lost over some professor's quick calculation. What if I were right? The immediate accessibility of a large quantity of hydrocarbon fuel would surely delay America's search for a sustainable green future. It's a huge burden to have that much sway over the future of America, America's energy, America's environment. This is your future that I held sway over. What I did next was based on the knowledge that natural systems, all natural systems, including the human economy, can only grow and thrive with access to energy, and that grows in proportional to that particular access. So with Lash's affirmation, I felt that it was very important that the world understood the relative importance of fracking gas shale. One evening in 2007, I drove home from my office, which is right over here on campus, thinking, Merry Christmas, America. Look at the economic opportunity you have. There was also an environmental opportunity for America, but that was not fully revealed for another 5 years. During the summer of 2012, the U.S. Energy Information Agency published CO2 emissions trends for the United States. It showed that since 2007, the beginning of the fracking debate, U.S. CO2 emissions had decreased for a first time in a long, long time. This decrease was the product of 2 trends in the American energy portfolio. First was the exchange of coal for natural gas and generating electricity. The other was the construction of windmills during this period of time. Now, this is the graph that actually shows that. Notice where the fracking debate starts. Those windmill farms that had been constructed, my sister had constructed some of them, and you can read about it right here. Now, the United States failed to assign or approve the Kyoto Accords in 1997. However, it was cost-driven capital market decisions concerning natural gas, not government regulation, that led to America becoming almost compliant with Kyoto. This was the environmental gift that America unwrapped when investigating the 2007 Christmas present that was rattling around in my head. Since that time, inexpensive natural gas has played a tremendous role in saving Americans millions and millions of dollars. That's good news. The bad news is that there is a very large footprint, and there are risks that come with this large footprint. Those risks first emerged from a little town in Pennsylvania called Dimmock, like so much dark smoke. Immediately, the fracking debate devolved into one of the most contentious, divisive, polarizing discussions that America has ever had. Never mind the fact that neither the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency nor the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection found one shred of evidence that fracking was somehow or another contaminating groundwater with fracking fluids. Now, it is true that there are large water management issues. It's true there are air quality issues, and it's true that there are a lot of other very important questions that need to be answered about fracking. However, the term toxic has become one of the most overused terms in the fracking debate, so overused that Pennsylvania author Seamus McGraw claims that the two most toxic chemicals in the fracking debate, do you know what those two most toxic chemicals are? Adrenaline and testosterone. And in fact, it is with some pride that I've watched Penn State students join the fracking debate. Some of you students have pointed out the very importance of this CO2 reduction that's happened since it kicked off in my head. Others have taken the point of view that there is a significant risk to achieving this particular Herculean feat in the first place. I was the one that kicked off the fracking debate, and I immediately became known as the Dr. Strangelove of that debate. When the Sierra Club came out in favor of fracking, its president, Carl Pope, was treated as a pariah, just like me. The fracking debate continued onward to the point where the debate was less about gas and more about what the facts were. Let me illustrate this for you. It's true that there are a bunch of Hollywood celebrities, Hollywood movie stars that are out there screaming at the top of their lungs, fracking kills. And this has distracted the public to the point where they can't tell the difference between fact and fiction. In fact, one of the most important facts, I'll tell you what it is. It's methane emission into the atmosphere. Why is that? Because methane is a greenhouse gas. However, the half-life of methane is so short that it is CO2 loading of the atmosphere that is most important in this particular fracking debate. Now, what we can see right here is the projection of the atmospheric loading as it's driving temperature increase, and these are climate models. Now, I should point out that by fixing leaks, green completions and whatnot, that can take care of the methane leaking into the atmosphere. However, if we get distracted by methane leaking in the atmosphere, if we stop fracking, this is the trend. And you can see by 2080, this trend is roaring forward with an incredible amount of speed. However, with bridge fuel of methane leading us into a sustainable future, you can see that it's possible to slow this trend by 2040 or 2050. Now, the reality is I don't want you to wake up one morning and say, when you're 60, most of you are 20 now, so that's 40 years, I don't want you to wake up and say, my God, how could I possibly have let the fracking debate take my eyes off of the real driver of a very, very important issue, global climate warming? Now, you might ask, why not make laws that move America directly into a sustainable future of wind and solar? Well, I wish it were that easy. But America doesn't want to live under the threat of brownouts into the foreseeable future. The reality is that natural gas in gas turbines will offer the only solution, at least right now, to taking full advantage of wind energy moving into this green future. I should point out, too, that in this plan, wind energy is highly subsidized. The same is true for highly subsidized solar energy. In the Czech Republic, where villages were fitted with subsidized solar electricity, the government had to ban further construction, largely because the sudden voltage shock from the sun appearing was capable of blowing out local parts of local transmission systems. My colleagues in the Czech Republic tell me that the U.S. transmission grids is subject even more so, more vulnerable to the same solar shock. So we all want to move into the sustainable future. We know that. However, the fracking debate has been such a distraction to this particular sustainable future. In fact, fracking for natural gas has offered America the opportunity to be a leader in decreasing global climate warming while maintaining an economy that benefits us all. I thank you very much for your time.